Emma, journal, yesterday, she's alone. The entire emergency room froze. Dr. Sarah Martinez stared at the man who'd been clinically dead for 7 minutes, her wrist still gripped in his trembling hand. What he'd just said was impossible. Emma was his sister's name, yes. It was listed on his emergency contact. But the rest, the journal, yesterday, there was no way he could know that. Emma was at her apartment across town. She hadn't even arrived at the hospital yet. And yet Andrew's eyes were completely clear, burning with an urgency that sent chills down Dr. Martinez's spine. He shouldn't know. He couldn't know. But somehow, during those 7 minutes when his heart didn't beat and his brain received no oxygen, Andrew had seen something. Something that would make even the most skeptical doctors in that room question everything they thought they understood about life and death. If you want to discover more incredible stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The day started like any other Tuesday for Andrew Mitchell. At 34 years old, he had built exactly the life everyone told him to want. Senior software engineer at a tech startup in Austin, Texas. 6-figure salary. A sleek downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. But if anyone had looked closely, they would have seen the truth. Andrew was succeeding at life while barely living it. His morning routine was mechanical. Check emails before his feet touched the floor. Gulp down coffee without tasting it. The same pattern, every single day. His phone buzzed with a text from his younger sister Emma. He swiped the notification away without reading it. There'd be time for that later. There was always supposed to be time later. The client presentation was scheduled for 10 o'clock, and Andrew was already rehearsing his pitch at every red light. His mind raced through spreadsheets and projections, completely disconnected from the world passing by his windows. He didn't notice the homeless veteran who sat at the same corner every morning. Didn't see Mrs. Patterson, his elderly neighbor, waving as she watered her flowers. Then at a stoplight on South Congress Avenue, something changed. A sensation he'd never felt before gripped his chest like an invisible hand squeezing his heart. Sharp, intense, terrifying. Andrew's vision blurred. His left arm went numb. The coffee cup slipped from his hand. He tried to breathe, but his lungs wouldn't cooperate. The light turned green. Cars honked behind him. Andrew's foot slipped off the brake and his car lurched forward, colliding with the vehicle ahead. A woman in yoga clothes reached his window first. She screamed for help. Andrew was conscious but fading, aware of faces peering at him through the glass but unable to speak or move. The pain in his chest had become everything. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They pulled him from the wreckage with practiced efficiency. Oxygen mask, IV line. Questions he couldn't answer. The ambulance doors closed with a metallic thud that sounded like a coffin lid. "We're losing him," the paramedic said. And Andrew understood those words even as the world began to dissolve around him. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, then to a pinpoint, then to nothing at all. The emergency room at St. David's Medical Center exploded into controlled chaos the moment Andrew arrived. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a 15-year veteran of emergency medicine, took one look at the monitors and knew they were in trouble. Massive heart attack, 34 years old. His heart rhythm was erratic, desperate, failing. "Clear!" Dr. Martinez's voice cut through the noise as the defibrillator charged. Andrew's body arched off the table, once, twice, 3 times. At exactly 3:47 p.m., the monitor showed what every medical professional dreads. A flatline. That single, continuous tone that means everything has stopped. But Andrew wasn't in that room anymore. He was above it, watching the scene unfold below with strange clarity and detachment. He could see his own body on the table, pale and still, while Dr. Martinez's hands pressed down in rhythmic compressions. The team moved like a choreographed dance he was no longer part of. There was no pain, no fear, just an overwhelming sense of peace that felt completely wrong given what was happening below. Andrew tried to speak, to tell them he was fine, but he had no voice, no body. Just consciousness floating in space, tethered by the thinnest thread to the meat and bone being shocked and compressed on the table. Then something shifted. The ER began to fade, Not into darkness, but into something else entirely. Images flooded Andrew's awareness with stunning clarity, but these weren't memories. At least they weren't his memories. He saw his sister Emma sitting on her couch in the apartment he'd never visited, even though she'd invited him a dozen times. Her face was buried in her hands and she was crying, the ugly, gut-wrenching sobs of someone who felt completely alone. On her lap was a journal, open to a page dated yesterday. Andrew could read every word as if he were standing right there. I wish Andrew cared. I wish I mattered to him as much as his meetings and his career. I used to have a brother. Now I just have someone who shares my DNA and sends Christmas cards. The vision twisted. Mrs. Patterson, his neighbor from 4B, was lying in a hospital bed. Not this hospital, a different one. She was alone, completely alone. No visitors, no flowers. The TV played to an empty chair beside her bed. Andrew somehow knew she'd been there for 3 days, and not a single person had come to see her. Another shift. James Rodriguez from accounting, the co-worker who always invited Andrew to lunch and always got rejected. James was sitting in his parked car, staring at a bottle of pills in his hand. His eyes were hollow, empty, the look of someone who'd decided the world would be better off without them. More faces flashed through Andrew's consciousness. Robert, the homeless veteran. Sarah, the barista who made his coffee every morning. Marcus, the delivery driver. Dozens of people. All the invisible souls that populated his world while he walked through life with blinders on, seeing nothing but his own narrow path forward. And then came the feeling. Not words. Not a voice. Just an overwhelming sense of understanding that crashed over Andrew like a wave. This was the message. Not a prophecy about the future. Not secrets about the afterlife. Something simpler and infinitely more profound. See them. Connect. Pay attention. You're not done because you haven't been present. These people need you to notice they exist. In the emergency room, Dr. Martinez was about to make the hardest call of her career. 7 minutes of CPR. Brain damage became likely after 4 minutes without oxygen. She looked at the clock, at the flat line, at the young man's face. One more try, just one more. Charging to 300, clear! The shock delivered. Andrew's body convulsed, and then, impossibly, miraculously, the monitor blipped. Once. Twice. A rhythm emerged. Weak but steady. Dr. Martinez pressed her stethoscope to his chest and heard the most beautiful sound in the world. A heartbeat. Andrew's eyes snapped open. He gasped, sucking air into lungs that had been still for 7 minutes. His hand shot up, grabbing Dr. Martinez's wrist with surprising strength. Emma, journal, yesterday, she's alone. Dr. Martinez frowned, exchanging glances with her team. But Andrew's eyes were clear, focused, desperate to be understood. Sir, you need to stay calm. You've had a major cardiac event. Can you tell me your name? Andrew Mitchell. I'm 34, I know where I am. But I need my phone, please. I have to call my sister, I saw her. I saw what she wrote. She thinks I don't care. The hospital kept Andrew in the ICU for observation. Stress. That was the answer. Chronic, unmanaged stress combined with a genetic predisposition no one knew he had. His body had been screaming for years, and he'd ignored every signal. When Emma walked through the door that evening, their eyes met, and something broke in Andrew. He started crying before she even reached the bed. Not the stoic, controlled emotion he usually allowed himself, but deep, shaking sobs. I'm so sorry, he managed between gasps. I've been the worst brother. I saw you, Em. I saw you crying. I saw what you wrote in your journal yesterday. Emma's face went white. She took a step back, her hand going to her mouth. What did you just say? Your journal, yesterday's entry. You wrote that you wish I cared, that you used to have a brother. Emma, I'm so sorry. I've been here, but I haven't been present, and it took dying to make me see it. There was a long silence. Emma's eyes filled with tears. How could you possibly know that? That journal is in my apartment. I've never shown it to anyone. Andrew, how? He told her everything, the 7 minutes, the visions, the overwhelming sense of connection and understanding. As he spoke, Emma sank into the chair beside his bed, her hand finding his. When he finished, she didn't question or doubt. She just held his hand and cried with him. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered. "When they called, I thought I'd never get to tell you how much I miss my big brother." "You have me," Andrew said. "Really have me, I promise. No more missed calls, no more being too busy. I'm here. I'm finally here." Over the next few days, as Andrew recovered, he began reaching out to the people he'd seen in his visions. Each conversation confirmed what he'd experienced. Mrs. Patterson was indeed in the hospital, had been there for 3 days with no visitors. She cried when he asked if he and Emma could come visit. James confirmed that yes, he'd been struggling with severe depression. He'd been sitting in his car yesterday, thinking dark thoughts. Andrew's call, his genuine concern, his insistence on meeting for lunch had pulled James back from an edge he'd been approaching for months. Robert, the veteran, was shocked when Andrew sat down on the curb beside him to talk. Really talk. For the first time in years, someone looked at Robert and saw a person. They spoke for an hour. Andrew learned about Robert's service in Iraq, his struggle with PTSD. By the end of that conversation, Andrew had connected Robert with a veterans services organization and committed to visiting every week. The message Andrew brought back wasn't mystical or religious. It was simpler and somehow more powerful than that. In a world of 8 billion people, most of us walk around invisible, desperate to be seen, aching to matter to someone. And we're all so busy, so distracted, so focused on our own narrow goals that we forget to look up and notice the humanity surrounding us. Andrew's story spread through the hospital staff, then to local news, then across social media. But the response wasn't what anyone expected. People didn't care about debates over the afterlife. Instead, they responded to something deeper. The comments and messages poured in by the thousands. This made me call my brother. We haven't spoken in 2 years. We talked for 3 hours last night. I finally introduced myself to my neighbor. Her name is Patricia. She's been living next door for 5 years and I never knew. I stopped scrolling through my phone at dinner and actually talked to my kids. Really talked. Andrew left his high-stress job a month after his cardiac arrest. He took a position with better hours, lower pay, and infinitely more peace. Every Sunday he had dinner with Emma. They cooked together, talked about real things, and rebuilt the relationship that had been dying from neglect. Twice a week, he volunteered at a veterans shelter where Robert was now staying. He learned the name of every barista, every delivery driver, every person whose services he used. Not because he had to, but because they were people, and people deserved to be seen. Mrs. Patterson became like a grandmother to both Andrew and Emma. James joined their weekly dinners, his depression managed with therapy and medication and, crucially, the knowledge that he mattered to people who would notice if he were gone. 6 months after his death and resurrection, Andrew recorded a video in his apartment. He didn't script it. He just spoke from the heart. "I don't know what I experienced during those 7 minutes," he said to the camera. "Maybe it was heaven. Maybe it was my oxygen-starved brain's last desperate firings. Honestly, I don't think the mechanism matters. What matters is the message." He paused. "We're all walking around every single day, passing people who are desperate to be seen, to matter. And we're all so busy, so distracted, so focused on whatever we think is important that we forget the only thing that's actually important. Connection. Presence. Actually being here for the people around us. I had to die to learn that lesson, but you don't. You're hearing it right now. So put down your phone, look up, see the people around you, ask the barista how their day is going, and actually wait for the answer. Call your sister, visit your neighbor, notice the person everyone else walks past. You don't need to have a near-death experience to start living. You just need to decide that today, right now, you're going to be present. You're going to see people. You're going to connect. Because I promise you, when your life flashes before your eyes, you won't remember the meetings or the promotions. You'll remember the moments of genuine human connection, The times you really saw someone and let them see you. I died for 7 minutes. I came back with one job, to truly live, and to remind everyone I can that you have the same job. So what are you waiting for? The video ended. Andrew sat back, pressed upload, and then did something he never would have done 7 months ago. He closed his laptop, put his phone in a drawer, and walked outside into the warm Texas evening. Emma was coming over for dinner. Robert was joining them. So were James and Mrs. Patterson. They'd cook together, tell stories, laugh, and be present for each other in all the messy, beautiful ways that make up a real human life. Andrew had died and come back with a message. Not a mysterious prophecy, not a religious revelation. Just the simplest, most profound truth there is. We're here for such a short time, all of us. And the only thing that makes any of it matter is how we show up for each other, how we see each other, how we choose every single day to truly live. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the connections in your own life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more incredible true stories. And most importantly, close this video and go connect with someone real. Call them, visit them, see them. That's the message. Everything else is just noise.